All right, here we are again with another video that I wanted to do, somewhat of a response, but to give some more clarification based on a video on a podcast that I recently put up, one of which was Saturday's podcast, where I spoke about the power of silence and learning how to use silence. And prior to that, I did a podcast where I spoke about protocols, and then of course in protocols in family specifically. And in that, I also in between there had a video, or really after that, no, in between. I'm sorry, had a video that I did where it just showed me with some Hebrew Israelite camp in Kansas City, and being blessed with some information and some words of encouragement and some things to think about by those individuals. So with that said, there were a lot of questions that people had asked in different ways, some who just saw the videos or that particular video, and then somewhere in the comments and things, and people were very curious as to what my intention was. And then I had offline I was talking to people, and some kind of assumed what I was doing or whatever, and and ultimately I was just listening. That's it. Sometimes it doesn't need to be more than that. And I was making a connection. Someone was speaking, someone was sharing. So you just, sometimes it's the courteous thing to do to actually listen. But with that being said, I wanted to speak about protocols again because, like I said, it kind of sandwiches in between the two videos, the two ideas. And ironically, right after I did my segment Saturday on the power of silence, I came across a video, and I thought it would be a great opportunity to share what the Anu protocols are, because like I said in the very first podcast that I did, or the new version of the podcast, Chief Yuya podcast, that I'm not speaking to everyone. I'm only speaking to a select few, and I'm not even giving a whole bunch of the type of information that I was giving before, where it's like, this is how you do this is how you do that, this is how you do that. Because if you don't really have a rhyme and reason and purpose for doing what you say you want to do, or you're attempting, then there's no reason for me to keep giving so much, and you're not assisting in this building work. And I know there's very, 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 very few who are interested in actually building community, or actually building something that's tangible and something that helps to cement and support a legacy. And when I say very few, let's say out of 100, there's maybe 2. All right, so I'm very clear on that. So when I speak about these Anu protocols and how we move and how we groove as Anu people, I'm speaking to a select few. And I'm sharing this video, and I'm going to comment on it. And I want to make something clear. I'm not speaking against anyone else's protocols that they utilize for their community. I'm only speaking about how we would respond in similar situation. All right. So here we go. I'm gonna play some of this, but I'm gonna narrate as it's going.
Sister, let me ask you a question before y'all go.
Okay, now herein you have the very first issue. Sister, let me ask you a question. There's a woman standing there, and she's with her husband, and she's with her child, and the individual who is teaching directs his question to the man's wife. Now he knows that's out of order. He knows he's not supposed to do that, but I guarantee you he did that for the setup. That was the setup. All right.
Do y'all feel like this was right?
It's an American thing.
It's an American thing.
Yeah.
No, this happened in South America too.
No, I'm saying, I'm from Portugal. Portugal's half African. Everyone walks free.
You say half what?
Half of Portugal is African. You walk all free and equal.
Where did slave ships go? Didn't slaves go? Didn't slaves go there too?
It's a common thing in America now.
It's not just America. This is all over the earth. Give me 1 John 5:19.
Right now. It's different between if you go here and you go to
Okay, so my question is, does somebody have to pay for what they did to my great-great-grandmother, my great-grandfather, and we still continue to live in the slums till this day? Does somebody, yes or no, hold on, wait.
That's what I'm saying. That's a now thing here.
Okay, but my question is, does someone have to pay for this?
So go take it up.
You can't, brother.
See, the man was he was asked for his opinion,
Okay.
and when he gives his opinion, the presenter becomes
That's not true.
hostile
That's not
and
true.
argumentative.
And I'm gonna get this on.
And this is the book of
Hold on,
first.
hold on, I want to hear the sister's point.
The only thing we can do is all these people around, everywhere around the world, only thing we can do is speak. And it starts with us as black people, us as Latinos, us as Europeans, it doesn't matter. It starts with it doesn't start with hating others. It starts with people.
First Kings 8:47. I'm gonna show you something.
All right.
First Kings
All right, you're
8:47.
going to learn today.
All right.
You're pagan? You sure you want to say that? I don't think you know what you're saying.
Why? Because I am very happy with my life. I respect everybody.
Okay.
She shouldn't be trying to teach men, number one. Number two, she shouldn't be shouting over a bunch of other people. Nor should he.
Other people are doing, then they will be okay.
Now watch this. Now watch this. Now watch this. Brother, is this your girl?
That's my wife.
That's your wife, right?
Nah, she
You should be
holds
talking for your wife.
Right.
Yeah,
You should be talking. No, give me that, and I'm gonna
And you
get
see
something
the
else.
woman
And
in
you
the
should
white
be
there
talking
when
for
he
your
said you
wife.
shouldn't be talking
Because I
for
don't
your
want to
wife.
say anything.
Her response.
I don't want to say anything and get her riled up. You see this? You see this?
It's
You
not
see?
getting me
Go watch
riled
this.
up.
She is riled up, but in all fairness, she has every right to be riled up because he was riling her up. This was a setup. First, you ask her a question, then you tell the man that his wife shouldn't be speaking for him, but you addressed her first, and then you're shouting on a speaker, and you know that she's a woman. She's not going to respond like a man. There's emotionalism there, but also she's definitely out of pocket. This is not how an Anu woman or an Anu man would carry themselves. Pay attention to how she grabs her husband's hands when he's gesticulating in order to suppress him.
A lot of you have weak brothers, man.
True.
A lot of you have weak brothers. The fact that he let you walk over here to a bunch of grown men and run your mouth like that, it shows me the order. It shows me the order in your house. Read that.
This is the book of First Kings, chapter 8 and verse 47.
Yes, all it back.
Yes. If they shall bethink themselves in the land whither they were carried
Carried where?
captives,
Where we were carried captives, while we slaves, read on.
and repent
Hold
and make supplication unto thee in the heart of them that carried
She
them.
said, while we teaching, we make no sense. We out here wasting our time. We out here wasting our time, right? Read on.
Hold on. Somebody that recorded that.
Read.
And make supplication unto thee in the land of them that carried them captive, saying, we have sinned.
We have sinned. That's what we're trying to tell our people to do. Confess your sins. We have sinned against our Heavenly Father. This is why we live at the bottom. This is why we live in the slums.
I don't live
This is
at
why
the
we in the
bottom.
ghetto.
I don't live at
That's
the-
fine. That's fine, but most of us do. I'm here
You see
to
how
speak. I'm
now
here
look
to
at how
speak
the
for
husband is
young
standing
men
by,
who don't
basically
have no voice.
helplessly.
I'm here to speak for the young
He
brothers
can do
who are about to be
nothing
shot down tonight.
with or for his woman at this point.
But you're doing
Watch
it
this.
in the wrong way. And if you know so much, why you gotta read
She shrugs him off.
1 Corinthians
know it from your head?
11 and 3.
I know it from
She's
your
stronger
head.
than him.
I don't have to read from
Read.
the paper.
See,
can't
you
tell-
had to look. This is your wife, right?
You can't
Get some
tell-
order, Al.
No, 'cause you
Get some
can't
order.
tell me
No one's
anything.
scared of you.
Back up.
She's right. You can't tell me
Back
anything.
No one is scared of you.
What are you gonna do?
Now, of course, you see there the ever famous "What you gonna do? What you gonna do?" Right? And of course, if they were to show her, if they were to meet her aggression with their aggression, then it'd be a different kind of issue. Then we'd have videos talking about how we need to protect our sisters and and how could a man put his hands on a woman, you know, because he had to back her up. She's jumping all up in his face like she's going to go touch him. And he's saying, back up, back up. Everyone knows they have a perimeter set up there. You see at least 5 to 6 men there, and she's shouting, what are you going to do? And her child is there. Well, what's going to happen is that you're going to try to put your hands on him again, and someone's going to lay you out on the ground, you and your husband. So because your inability to get control of your emotions, whether you feel you're right or wrong, you now put your family in a dangerous position. The police could show up and kill everybody because you need to be right in this moment. Right? Now, I know many of you say, but what about the man? I'm talking to our new people. Our new people know better. They wouldn't say anything stupid like that. You already know what you're dealing with when you see a group of men on a street corner teaching like that, and you should know how to purport yourself. And now, what about them? That's what causes these type of problems. What about continuing on your way and enjoying your vacation? What about understanding that you, regardless of how fiery you feel or how big your mouth is, you can't beat a man physically. So when you jump in his face and say, what are you going to do? And you might even swing at him. When he swings at you, it's going to have a much different effect than when you swing at him. And clearly your husband doesn't have much for you because he couldn't even pull you back. He couldn't even pull you to where he wanted. You stronger than him. So you're used to that type of interaction. And part of this, you can see she's enjoying it because she's finally getting some testosterone in her life. That's not just coming from her.
Give me Ezekiel 2 and 2.
Well, this is the reason why they look upon
Brother,
us.
listen to this.
I grew up in the fucking gunshot.
You let your wife cover your mouth? You let your wife cover your mouth?
All right. So I know you guys all saw that and heard that. You know, are you Portuguese or are you from Harlem? Which one? Which one? I grew up in Harlem. You just said you're from Portugal. You know, but on top of that, of course, as you saw, she covers his mouth and begins and says, no, babe, as if he's the one who's out of control. You see the narrative that's being spun here in this moment? Clearly, she's the one that has no control at all, no emotional control. She wanted to argue because she's claiming this pagan thing, but she's grabbing on him and covering his mouth as if he's out of control, and he's allowing it to happen. He's allowing himself to be controlled in that manner.
Now, you man. You a man.
Grew up in the streets of Harlem.
And this is the book of 1 Corinthians, chapter 11 and verse 3.
Get out of here. We the real Hebrews. We the real Jews. You think we scared? Read.
But I will have you know that the head of every man is Christ.
The head of every man.
Now she's a sister and you want to talk to me in that kind of way. You see, now she plays the victim after she just finished acting like a brutish animal, which showed in that moment, you're not a sister. This is not your brother and you're not his sister. You're combatants. You're jumping in people's faces. You're yelling. You tell them they should have better things to do. You're saying you're a pagan, even though they're this, but now all of a sudden you're a sister, only because maybe they address you as that, but more so because you want to use that for a victim narrative, ultimately. And the man was going away, and she turns back around. And notice when they're arguing, both of them have their backs turned on their child. That child could have easily been abducted, if not for probably one of the Hebrew Israelites looking and keeping that perimeter.
Man is
That's
what?
what I
The head
don't
of every man is
understand.
Christ. And the head of the woman is the man.
The head of the woman is what?
And the head of the woman is the man.
Is what?
And
Is
the head of the woman is the man.
Is what?
Is the man.
But the neck
You
is
hear
on
that?
her
You hear
head.
that? Ezekiel 2 and 2.
The neck
Ezekiel
is
2 and
on
2.
her
I know. This is let me
Are
tell you
you
something.
married?
America
Are you
has
married?
taught you
Are you
women to
married?
be out of order.
Are you
America
married?
has taught
Are
you
you
women.
married? Do you
America,
have a
read
neck
that.
for you?
Give me
You
that.
don't
This
have a
is the
neck
book of
for you.
Ezekiel, chapter
Control
2
your wife,
and verse
brother.
2.
You live in the slums?
Control your wife,
Very
brother.
unto me.
You don't.
When he spake unto me,
I grew up
and
in the
set me
Start
up.
over. Start over.
So if you live in the slums, it's your own fault.
And this is the book of Ezekiel, chapter 2 and verse 2.
Get out.
And the Spirit entered into me when he spake unto me.
You dealing with men of the spirit. Read.
And set me upon my feet. And I heard him that spake unto
He
me.
put us on our feet and we heard the Lord. Hey, stay. I want y'all to witness something. Oh, it's too rebellious. Okay. I see what's going on. Give me that. Read.
All right, get out.
And he said unto me,
Get
Son
out.
of man,
Do it.
I sent thee to the children of Israel.
Drop that. Drop that. Give me Proverbs 9:13. You guys are funny, man. Control your woman. Control your woman. This is your child. You want your child to see you like that? You want your child to see you like that?
Do you have education?
You want your child to see you like
Do
that?
you have a degree?
You women are out of order. You women are out of order. Control yourself. Control your spirit. You dealing with real men of God. Control
Show
your
me
spirit.
that you're a real man.
And this is the book of Proverbs, chapter 9 and 13.
Read that.
A foolish woman.
A what?
A foolish woman.
A what?
A foolish woman.
A what?
A foolish woman. A foolish woman.
Control your woman. Control your woman. Give me
She got
give me some rap 26.
I own my own house before I
26.
got married. I had 2 fucking degrees before I was married.
We,
I
let me tell you something. We looking at that with 2 and 3 degrees up there. We ain't fronting on that.
Google me, it ain't that damn hard. You want to
25. And
download
this, hey, listen up.
And this
Listen
is the
up.
book.
Control your woman. No, she makes more money. You hear that? Then she brags about raising a child by herself before she was married, having her own house before she was married. These are not things that you should be proud of, but rather things that you should be ashamed of. These are things to be ashamed of, not proud of. As an Anu woman, you're not bragging that you got a family. First of all, you shouldn't be bragging and yelling in a man's face, but you shouldn't have a house by yourself because that means you don't have a home. You have no covering. You shouldn't have a child outside of a union. That's a problem. That's not something to brag about.
What?
It's
She
glamorous.
run her mouth all damn day.
Why you there?
She run her mouth all damn day. We don't.
She is simple.
She is what?
She is simple.
She is what?
She is
She
simple.
is what?
She is simple.
She is what?
She is simple.
She is simple. You're glamorous. You run your mouth and you're simple. Control your woman. Control.
Now you hear that? That's why she has more money than you. That's what the guy says. And then his wife says, I have 2 degrees. Google me. Google me, baby. So you begin to see what criteria they're using, as a standard to judge who and what they are. The terminology that's used. I'm a pagan. I have 2 degrees. Google me. I make more money than you. So you're speaking to, you're listening to people who are functioning from 2 totally different paradigms, but trying to use their imposing or attempting to impose their personal standards on one another. One is reading out of a book that doesn't mean anything to the other one, and the other one is speaking about societal and systematic, accolades that doesn't mean anything to that one. And they're just going back and forth, butting heads, and not really looking for any level of common ground. And the reality is, before they began speaking to her, they could tell she was already foolish and rebellious and that the guy was weak. You could tell. Because here's the other thing. No strong man is going to let a woman sit there. You got guys just, teaching on the corner, and they're not teaching anything that they practice. If they practice together, who knows? It's probably just her. She's a pagan, as she's calling it, and he's something else. And then the son is there, but no man is going to let his family sit underneath something like that. If anything, he would have went and situated them in a hotel room or on the beach, and he would have came back and listened and asked questions himself. So the moment that they saw that, they already knew she's out of order. He's out of order. This is easy prey. This is going to be an easy one to make a scene with and to get a good video out of and to make our points, right? Not the Anu way. If this was an Anu man, first of all, as an Anu man, he's going to lead his family and children. They're not going to be standing side by side listening to other men teach like that, especially men who are not in their culture or community. It's not like you're listening to another Anu person teach and you're sharing about information that you've all agreed upon, but if this was an Anu man, he would have kept it moving. He would have kept it walking and moving with his wife. He's not going to have his wife half naked around a bunch of men arguing, or jumping in their face as if she's going to brutally attack them or arguing with them back and forth, especially understanding that the way we teach and the way we understand and the way that we study in our scholastics as Anu individuals is more inclusive than the average person. So if someone pulls out a book and says, this is what God wants you to do, 9 times out of 10, we're going to have a different understanding of what God is than that individual who's reading out of that book. So it's only just courteous and good manners not to now create an argument with this person, but Either you can use it as a teaching opportunity, or the more wiser thing to do is to say thank you for the information and keep it moving, because somebody has to listen in this equation. And from the very beginning, the individual who was teaching showed and proved that he was not interested in listening. The woman showed and proved that she was not interested in listening, but really she was speaking to them in a condescending manner. She thinks because she's a quote unquote pagan that she's better than them. You can even tell because she's in this interracial relationship, she thinks she's better than them. Because she has 2 degrees, she's better than them. And because she makes more money, as she says, and she doesn't live in the slums, she's better than them. So you have 2 sides, 2 people, neither one of them want to hear what the other one has to say. So the only thing that can happen as a result is chaos. That an Anu man would have known that, grabbed her, sweetheart, let's go. No. And our new woman wouldn't have even engaged. She wouldn't have even, she could have told you what those men, what their shoes were, their socks were, but she wouldn't have been looking them in the eye and going back and forth with them or anything like that, because not only does it put her family in a precarious situation, but it also undermines the authority of her husband. And it also undermines what he's supposed to do from a protective capacity. He can't protect her. If something were to pop off, he's got to choose between who he protects, his son or his wife. For some of you, this is really difficult to comprehend. And that's because you've been trained that way, or you're part of the problem. What I'm speaking about is solutions, and how we begin to not only heal as Anu, I didn't say as a people, because all skin ain't kin, but how we begin to establish protocols and ways that we can move that create better fortune in our life, that create better causes, and ultimately allow us to grab hold of the greater idea of destiny that we have in front of us. So here you saw, and there was more, there were other people who came up, but you saw a great example here. Number one, you had a man who wasn't really behaving like a man. I don't know if he is a man. He was behind his woman most of the time while she was yelling and going off. He was yelling in back of her. And then when he chose to speak up in a more aggressive fashion, which you could tell wasn't really real, because he was like, come to Harlem with that. It didn't even resonate, But when he said that, she covered his mouth and silenced him. So clearly you see that she is the head of that family. And one of the reasons is because she does feel that she's gained some accolades from the more dominant society. So that puts her in a power position. That's why she talked about her degrees, and she talked about what she owned. And I raised my child by myself, which, like I've mentioned before, no woman ever raises a child by themselves. That's a lie. Whenever I'm a single mom doing it all by myself, you're never doing it all by yourself. But that shows a measure of ungratefulness. There's always mommy helping, daddy helping, sisters helping, aunties helping, cousin helping, and simp boyfriends helping, baby fathers helping. And then on top of all of that, the state helps. You're never doing it by yourself. That's always a lie, but that's a narrative that's pushed. And it's pushed so that sense of strength and independence can be there. So when she jumps in your face, she can say, what you gonna do? What you gonna do? Because clearly that's what she does with her husband every day. That's obvious. Not understanding that this man, he's gonna put his hands on you. If you get in his face and you make him, if you rear up that energy and you get aggressive with him, he's gonna get aggressive back with you. So as a gift and a favor, he just put his elbow out. You see the one guy put his forearm out and said, back up, back up, back up. Right? So again, I'm speaking about the protocol and behavior that we need to take on. Now, those who are vehemently against us coming up as a collective and coming up as a community, just pay attention to the comments on the videos or what people say in off time about everything I'm saying. Those are the ones who are going to say, but what about them? They was yelling too. Those are the ones who are going to say, he sounds misogynistic, because everything I'm saying is sound. You're walking with your family, and as a man, you got to be thinking about protection. As a woman, you shouldn't be yelling and screaming at other men like that, even if they're yelling and hollering, because you could have passed it. You didn't have to buy a ticket to that carnival, especially knowing that, in all honesty, some camps of Hebrew Israelites, this is just what they do. Everyone knows that by now. They stand on corners and they start arguments. in the name of trying to teach you. They become very derisive. Is it their fault that this happened? No, it's the woman's fault and the man's fault. And ultimately, I say the man's fault because, like they said, everything they were saying was correct. It's just the way they were saying it maybe could have been said differently. I don't think they necessarily had. I don't think their ambition was to really teach in that moment, but rather to highlight certain behavior. So they did things that they knew were going to trigger certain behavior because a family or a female or a male who's moving in a way that's misaligned with their actual divine nature, it spills off of them. You can see it a mile away. You can see it a mile away. I already know some of the things they saw. Probably when they walked up, which we didn't see that part. Maybe we did. I'd have to rewind it. But I bet you she was probably walking in front of them. You know, they probably neither one of them paying attention to the child. You could look at what she has on, you know, because the little bathing suit thing, she's half naked. You know, so they're looking at that. The man might have been barefoot because he was carrying his shoes. You know, so he's not even ready for action if something pops off. He's relaxed. He might even been a little tipsy. You know, so they see that coming all the way down the boardwalk. They see you coming with that. And they say, oh, we got one of these. Because the signs are very clear. And that's what sometimes people have a hard time understanding, that the signs of sick Western culture, you know, and especially when it portrays itself in a colonialistic fashion on men and women or males and females, because you can't really be a man or a woman underneath plantation mentality. On the plantation, you're never an adult. You could be 70 years old and you still call boy, you know, so, or gal. You could be 80 years old, gal, you know, so you can see it a mile away. You can see it coming a mile away, and you know how to trigger it. You know how to invoke the worst parts of it, and that's all they did. That's why I said he knew he wasn't supposed to address her, but he did it. Sister, let me ask you a question, right? He knew he wasn't supposed to do that, but he was testing it because the guy just stood there. The guy should have said, hold on, wait a minute. No, you can't do that. You can ask me a question if you want to, you know, or he should have just put his hand out and said, no, you out of pocket. No, you can't ask my woman a question, right? That would have ended everything. I guarantee you the conversation would have changed from there. Because then at that point, he would have known that this is a man who's moving under some righteous culture. But the moment he allowed that to happen, he knew, okay, I'm gonna have a field day with these two. They're gonna get this. They're gonna bring a lot of attention to our stand here, our booth here, our little podium. They're gonna bring a lot of attention because I got two fools here essentially. As I knew, we don't move that way. You know, if you're a woman and or a female, because I can't even say you're a woman if you're not within the proper balance of a unit, and you're bragging about your degrees. Who gave you those degrees? Who are you saying certified you? Did your own natural complement certify you, or did some alien man certify you? So when you bring that up, that only puts you in a worse position. When your first statement or you know, your mouthing is, I'm educated, I got 2 degrees, or I got a degree. That's not a good look. In fact, that's a red flag. That's a red flag to a real man. Because all you're doing is you're letting me know that you've already married some other man first. You already married yourself to some other philosophy. And my job is to hand you my philosophy and let you cultivate that and produce something with it. But you already have your own philosophy. When you're bragging that I had a house before I was married. So you're telling me through and through that you don't need me. So if you don't need me, I don't want you. You're telling me that you were able to do everything like a man does. So if that's the case, then I'm going to treat you like a man. And as a man, I don't really care about your welfare that much. You know, we're going to do a transaction and then we're done. You see, so you put yourself in a bad situation by bragging about things that the dominant society tells you that you should be proud of, when in fact, you're taught to be proud of everything that you should be ashamed of. I raised my child by myself. You should be ashamed of that. Because that either means that something was so horrible about you that the child's father didn't want to be with you, or something was so horrible about him that you didn't want to be with him. But either way, you either made a really poor decision because you're a poor decision maker, or you really have some serious character issues. Either way, you're wrong. Either way. And you're bragging about it. You're bragging about that. Also, it also highlights the fact that your now husband is a simp. That's all. That's all you just let the world know. I raised my child by myself. So who's this guy? What's he here for? I had a house by myself. What's he here for? Then he's standing behind you, talking about your pockets, talking about your money. He just let the world know who he is. You know, he's weak. There's not a strong bone in his body. He's a weakling. You know, he's pushing his woman out front. And there'll be some who will agree with that and say, yeah, that's because, that's the goddess. That's not a goddess. Not acting like that. They were right in that she's a fool. She was cantankerous and she was foolish. She had no emotional control. She had no ability to say, you know what? For one, I'm not going to argue with a man, because why would I do that? That's unladylike. And then on top of that, my husband is here. What position am I putting him in? If he feels that something needs to be said, then that's where we'll go. And then my child is here. What position am I putting everyone in because I want to be right, because I'm a pagan, which is a silly thing to even say, because a pagan just means someone who lives in the country. So once you hear someone say that, they don't know what they're talking about. And we haven't even touched upon the Hebrew Israelite men, because they already have their culture. So this isn't about them. When you encounter someone who already has their culture, their system, their ways, and their patterns, now it's incumbent upon you to determine how you're going to display your culture in that moment. Not how you're going to weave in and out of this ghetto thing, and then you're a pagan, you're ghetto acting. I got 2 degrees. So are you bougie? I don't live in a slum anymore. Are you bougie? Are you ghetto? Are you a witch? Which one is it? And of course, someone would say, I'm all of that, baby. No, you're all confused. And these guys, right or wrong, are not confused. They're very clear on where their cultural standpoint is. And it's clear that your cultural standpoint is dysfunctional because, again, the woman is out front. The female is out front. The one who's least able to actually defend the family, you push her out front and you're yelling from behind her. And then when you speak up to say something, she covers your mouth and pulls you away as if she has to protect you from the big bad, dark-skinned men. So there was so much here. I mean, I'm not going to pick everything apart. I'm just going to give you a little bit and see what you can do with that. And I know some will disagree to get thumbs down, but that's because you just don't know. And you want to keep things backwards and horrible the way they are. And some of us are striving towards something that's more distinguished. And as our new people, we have to be set apart. We have to explore and portray prestige. We have to be distinguished at all times, and we have to move as royalty. That display there was not royal. It didn't show distinction. It didn't show prestige. It showed foolishness. And it showed pure dysfunction. Pure dysfunction. All right. So that has been it. And, I'll be back when I'm back. Definitely leave your comments, and chop it up. And, of course, some will agree, some will disagree. I don't care. I don't care. This is for those who need this instruction and are trying to develop healthier protocol, i.e. healthier culture in their life. Those of you who are trying to defend Western culture, you're lost. I can't, I can't do anything with you anyway. You're gone. But this is for those who are looking for the healthier alternative so we can get out of this mess. Peace.